that it is the wedge shape of the vertebra itself, which is a key factor in us even having a lordotic direction of curve down here. But this guy, it is this narrower portion of the bone, this dark gray foam, that when we side bend, see if I can not drop this, that when we side bend, you can see where it would enable side bending more if that skinny part of the bone could get around here, that thinner part of the posterior bone. Well, if you think about that, that's side bending one way, but rotating the opposite way to enable this wedge shape to get around to the back. So anyway, I just want to reinforce the importance of that structure, how structure is a huge influence, along with, in concert with, the ligamentous structures, when they get tight, where they get tight. And as we mentioned in this portion of the spine, as well as thoracic, what's the current relationship at any given point in time of the facets themselves? How close to the extremes of flexion and extension are they in? But those facets are very different from these, the cervical. Those facets are a little bit more consistent with the cardinal planes, the sagittal frontal thing. That doesn't mean that you can't move in all planes, because you can. And please don't, remember, like we talked about in communication, it's important that you watch that probably several times, because communication is not just words, it's an understanding of these issues that we're talking about. Because if you're confused right now because you're not super familiar with the words and what they mean, that just makes this more difficult. Anyway, yes, those planes are simply our north, south, east, and west. They are not magic. They don't mean anything. They are not bad. Because when people talk about them as if, oh, you're just moving in the sagittal plane. Yeah, and that's bad because what? It's a normal way to move for us. But talking about structure, and this time, not so much a wedge shape of vertebral bodies, which we don't appear to have here, as much as we have these planes of facets. Now, can you see this? I'm going to try to keep everything good here. But we've got a plane of a facet right here and right here. You see those little guys? They are at virtually, you know, for all practical purposes, a 45-degree angle to each vertebra. And they're connecting each at that 45-degree angle. So what does that mean? Why am I bringing that up? Well, I think it's interesting, and it plays into, it creates this type 2 being normal up here. And let me try to show you what I mean. If I were to look at side bending, and I'm going to do it from an anterior point of view first. And I really wish I could look at anterior and side at the same time, because I'd like for you to see that when side bending attempts to occur, we got a few number of possibilities. Number one, we could have a complete like gapping, which really here's a dislocation. A gapping so that we can actually move in this, you know, pure frontal plane. Well, that's not likely to happen. There's a joint capsule surrounding these guys, and that joint capsule tissue, that ligamentous type tissue, the collagen that makes it up is not, it's not elastin, that's for darn sure. It doesn't have much give to it. So if you remember joint play, right, from the joint mobility section, and what it allows, it's not going to allow this kind of thing. And even so, even if there was some gapping over here, there's not much more room for smushing on the other side. So there's not a lot of straight up and straight down that would create, you know, a transverse plane side bending motion. But I think you can imagine from this structure that if I